Me now to talk more about the situation in Ukraine is Virginia Senator Tim Kaine, who sits on the Armed Services and Foreign Relations Committee. Senator, it's a great pleasure to see you.
Good to be back, Jose.
Thank you so very much for being with us. So the president spent about a third of his speech talking about Ukraine and the invasion of Russia to that country. How did you see it?
I thought that was very powerful, and I wasn't sure that he was going to start with that, but he did, and it produced a lot of unity in that chamber. We were seeing everybody on their feet, praising Ukrainians' courage, but also celebrating the fact that in this very tough time, alliances like NATO have really proven their worth. Remember, President Trump would kind of cozy up to Putin and trash NATO. Well, now we see Putin for who he really is. And Putin has rejuvenated NATO in a way that hadn't been the case in 30 years. And so there was a real, I think, understanding recently that America still has an important role to play in forging global coalitions against tyrants. This is a very, very difficult situation, but the world is standing together, and it's good to see my colleagues on both sides of the aisle standing together last night.
And it's interesting, last night President Biden joined much of the rest of the Western world when he said there would be no more flights from Russia. Is there more the United States should be doing, you think?
Well, I think there's always more. So we need to do more humanitarian and military aid. We're working on our appropriations bill, as you know, likely to be finished late next week. And I think you're going to see a multi-billion-dollar aid package, probably split between humanitarian and military aid. I've been pressing for a war crimes investigation against Vladimir Putin. The ICC announced that they are starting that investigation yesterday. That's very positive. We need to put more U.S. assets and troops into our NATO countries on the Russian border so that they can feel assured. That's happening, including troops deployed from Virginia. So there is much more to be done. But the good news is, in the early phases of this, the combination of the sanctions together with the cancellation of the Nord Stream pipeline and actions by nations like Switzerland,
I know, that's
Finland and Sweden, Germany, that's had this history of not sending weapons into conflict zones, they are now unified. And you see scenes in Russia, people making runs on banks and ATMs. That tells you that there's more than just a token political opposition in Russia. Russians are already feeling the brunt of this.
Russia plays such a significant part in the economies of Western Europe. I mean, let's think of Schroeder, the former leader of Germany in Gazprom. I mean, there's a lot of financial ties between Russia and certainly Europe and here in the United States. Is there something that can be done to try and cut those ties, which have been very beneficial to a lot of people in Western Europe?
They have been. And look, when you see BP and Shell and others announcing that they are extracting themselves from joint ventures with Russian firms, that's hard to do. I mean, they are very entangled, but they are extracting themselves, and that can set a model for others. We are considering other sanctions, so there could be secondary sanctions, you know, maybe not on the direct financial institutions, but those who are doing business with others who are doing business with Russia. But the important thing, Jose, on any of these sanctions is they really work and we do them in tandem with our partners. And that's what the Biden administration has done well for months. They have patiently gone to our partners in Europe. You know, Germany didn't want to cancel the pipeline. They didn't want to. But he got them to agree that if there was an invasion, they would have to. And they stuck with that. So we need to take these sanction steps in tandem with our allies. They're stronger.
We're getting a lot of talk, and you hear it. I mean, the Ukrainian legislator was on Today's Show today talking about the need for a no-fly zone or for a dome over Ukraine to protect civilian lives that are being taken and blood is being shed by the Russians in Ukraine as we speak.
Yeah.
What are the difficulties of that?
Well, it's your heart goes out. I mean, to see these scenes of the bloodshed in Kiev and Kharkiv and other cities, your heart goes out to folks. Trying to do that in a contested airspace would put U.S. troops at risk. But that doesn't mean that this isn't a concept we should be considering. Perhaps what we do is we deliver heavy humanitarian aid into the western part of Ukraine so that people fleeing violence in some parts of the country could find safe haven elsewhere. So there's these are items that are being kicked around by the administration, by our military leaders. I know they're presenting President Biden with options. Things like that, again, would need to be done in tandem with allies for them to really work.
By the way, Senator, just moments ago, Senator Schumer met with President Biden's Supreme Court nominee, Judge Ketanji Brown Jackson. How do you see her nomination playing out?
I'm very excited. I have voted for her in the past for her district court position and her circuit court position. I always, on a Supreme Court, wait till after I meet with the candidate and watch the Judiciary Committee hearing to make a final determination. But I'll tell you something I really feel good about. I went to law school, and when I started, there were no women on the Supreme Court, and it seemed natural. You know, that wasn't a source of angst in my first-year law school class in 1979, that how come there's only been 9 men on the court? We're going to have 4 women on the Supreme Court. As much as there are other areas where we're not making the progress I wish we were, we do need to step back and say, wow, what a powerful thing that in just the course of my legal career, we've gone from 0 out of 9 to we'll have 4 out of 9 women on members of the court.
Pero como se tardan, man, it takes.
Oh, sí, no,
the wheels of justice.
Bien despacio. Bien despacio.
Senator, I want to talk to you about immigration, something that is close to your heart, and we've talked about this
many
for
times.
years now.
Yeah, many times.
The president talked immigration. He blended in the border, which is, you know, 2 different things.
Yeah.
Do you think there's anything possible on immigration reform that could be, legislatively speaking, not just a Build Back Better Act, all or nothing?
I do, Jose, and here's why. Look at the labor market right now, 3.9% unemployment, and it's getting tighter, and we're about to do the biggest infrastructure investment we've ever. Who's going to build it? So when we start to get in tight labor market conditions to do infrastructure, to do this manufacturing expansion, like, where's it going to come from? So what we're doing in the Senate right now is we're having conversations that are not the comprehensive bill that we tried in 2013, but a little bit, could we do TPS reform? Because these 500,000 plus current TPS members are really important parts of the American economy. Could we do an agriculture workers bill? And so you have pairs of senators kind of like working on pieces of these, and I would say most of them connect with labor market issues, and the tightness of the labor market actually gives us some opportunity to find some bipartisan accord going forward.
This is important. I've got to tell you, I don't hear, and I'm so glad you're here with us today, because it's been so easy to say, oh, it's all in the parliamentarians' hands. And that's it. But, you know, you all have a responsibility, and you have the opportunity.
And we need to. A lot of people think about immigration just as a security issue. It's fundamentally a workforce issue.
It is. It's an American issue.
Absolutely. And that may, thinking of it as a workforce issue in a tight labor market, may be the thing that breaks the logjam.
Senator, I can't thank you enough for being with us. It's great to see you.
Always good. Thanks, Jose.
Thanks so much.